Welcome to Dev Mindset, the podcast that unpacks product development, project management, and skill building. Dive in with us to discover the tech mindset that fuels innovation.
Ever feel like you're constantly putting out fires in your projects? Like, just as you solve one problem, another one pops up.
Oh, tell me about it. It's the project management struggle.
Right. Well, today we're talking about a way to prevent those fires in the first place. We're diving into the definition of ready, or door.
The door. Music to my ears.
Now, if you're familiar with Scrum, you've definitely heard of the definition of done.
The door, yeah.
The door is kind of like its proactive cousin.
I like that.
It's about making sure your tasks are set up for success before the sprint even starts.
Because who wants to waste time on a task that's not well defined? Right.
Yeah.
It's like trying to build a house without a blueprint. You're just asking for trouble.
Exactly. And one source I came across mentioned that teams using a door saw a reduction in wasted effort by up to 40%.
Wow. 40%. That's huge.
Yeah. So we're not just talking about a small efficiency boost here. This is about preventing those major garbage in, garbage out scenarios that can really derail a project. I'll admit, though, when I first heard the term ready, I thought it sounded a bit, well, redundant.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, isn't something that's ready already, ready?
Right, it seems obvious on the surface. But think about it. How many times have you started working on something only to realize halfway through that you were missing crucial information or that the goalposts had moved without you realizing it?
All the time. It's incredibly frustrating.
Right. Ready is about establishing that shared understanding up front so everyone is truly on the same page from the get-go.
Okay, so less about checking boxes and more about making sure we're all speaking the same language.
Exactly.
And to make this more than just a good idea, a lot of teams rely on a framework called the I-Invest model.
Ah, yes. The I-Invest model, a classic.
So each letter in I-Invest represents a checkpoint for a truly ready task. And the first one is independent.
Which is all about avoiding those dreaded project bottlenecks.
Right. So we're talking about breaking down tasks in a way that allows people to work on them without getting stuck waiting on someone else.
Exactly. Like, remember that project we did where nothing could move forward until Bob finished his part?
Oh, please don't remind me about that project. It still gives me nightmares.
But Bob was stuck because he was waiting on approval from...
It was like a domino effect of delays.
Exactly. And that's what independent is designed to prevent. Fewer dependencies, smoother workflow.
Okay, so independent equals fewer bottlenecks and smoother sailing. What's next on the checklist?
Negotiable.
Negotiable. Okay. Now, I get that Scrum is all about being flexible and iterative.
Right.
But isn't that kind of a given? Like, do we really need a whole checklist item to remind us to be open to change?
It's not just about being open to change. It's about recognizing that the best solutions often come through that negotiation process. For example, I remember this one user story we had. Seemed pretty straightforward at first.
But then when you actually started digging into it...
Exactly. During one of our door huddles, someone from the customer support team piped up. Turns out what we thought users wanted was actually the complete opposite of what they needed.
Wow. So that one conversation completely changed the direction?
Completely reshaped the entire user story.
Right.
And you know what? The end result was so much more valuable because of it.
That's amazing. Those aha moments that save everyone a lot of headaches down the line are priceless. So negotiable isn't just about being flexible. It's about unearthing those hidden needs and making sure we're building something truly great. All right, what's up next on our I-Invest checklist?
Valuable.
Valuable.
Seems like a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do should be valuable, right?
In theory, yes. But it's surprisingly easy to get caught up in the technical weeds and lose sight of the bigger picture. Are we actually building something users want and need?
That's a great point. It's easy to get lost in the details.
Exactly. One source mentioned a team that spent weeks developing this super complex reporting feature.
Oh, no, and then...
And then they realized nobody actually needed that level of data.
Ouch. All that work for nothing. Talk about a waste.
Exactly. So valuable is all about tying every task back to that user value. Sometimes the most valuable thing you could do is realize that something doesn't need to be built at all.
Very true. Okay, so how does estimable play into this whole door thing?
Estimation. The bane of every project manager's existence.
Huh. Isn't it, though?
But seriously, without a clear picture of what needs to be done, those estimates are just shots in the dark.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. But a well-defined ready task, it gives you the information you need to make informed predictions about time and resources.
It's like trying to budget for a trip without knowing where you're going or how long you'll be there.
Perfect analogy. You're speaking my language now.
All right, so up next we have small.
Small but mighty.
Right, so we're talking about breaking down those massive tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
You got it?
Which is, honestly, good advice for life in general.
Absolutely. In Scrum, smaller tasks are just easier to estimate, easier to manage within a sprint, and if something changes, you're not derailing a huge chunk of work.
It's all about agility.
Exactly.
Okay, last but not least on our iInvest checklist, testable.
The all-important testable.
Now, this one seems pretty self-explanatory.
It does, but it's actually where that ready concept really shines. We're not just talking about whether something can be tested. We're talking about having those clear, objective criteria for what done actually looks like.
So instead of a subjective, yeah, that looks about right, it's more like this feature passes X, Y, and Z criteria, so we know it's good to go.
Now you're getting it. And having those criteria established during the ready stage means fewer surprises, fewer arguments later on.
It's like that old saying, measure twice, cut once. Except in this case, it's define clearly, build once.
I like that. And, it's interesting. This whole door thing, it's about so much more than just a checklist.
Oh. Tell me more.
Well, one source called it a collaboration superpower.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Well, think about it. Getting everyone together, the developers, the designers, the product owners, even someone from customer support, if it makes sense to hash out those ready criteria.
That's powerful.
Right. You're tapping into all those different perspectives. You're uncovering potential blind spots, and you're building a shared sense of ownership over the project.
So instead of just throwing tasks over the wall, it's about having everyone invested from the very beginning.
Exactly. And that shared understanding, that feeling of ownership, it can do wonders for a team's morale and ultimately for the success of the project.
I can definitely see that. Because when everyone has a voice in defining what ready means, it's not just a to-do list, it's a team agreement.
Right.
But do you have any real-world examples where this made a difference?
Absolutely. I remember when we first started implementing Door on our team, there was some pushback.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People thought it was just another meeting, more bureaucracy.
So a tough sell at first.
Oh, totally. But then we had this one project, a complete overhaul of our user onboarding process.
Oh, okay, sounds like a big one.
It was a beast of a project, tons of moving parts, lots of stakeholders. But we decided to go all in on the Door. Involved everyone from day one. And you know what?
What?
It made a world of difference. Because we took the time to hash out all those ready criteria together, we uncovered potential roadblocks early on, things we never would caught otherwise.
That's huge.
It was huge.
Yeah.
And because everyone had a voice in the process, there was this incredible sense of ownership and accountability.
So even with a complex project like that, having that shared understanding from the door really helps smooth things out.
It was incredible. Don't get me wrong. The project still had its challenges. I mean, it's software, right? There are always going to be bumps in the road. But the team, the way they communicated, collaborated, their problem-solving skills, it was night and day compared to how we used to work.
That's amazing.
And we launched on time.
Oh, wow.
With everyone feeling like they'd actually contributed.
That's so important.
It really is.
It's like you're not just building a product, you're building a team in the process.
100%.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on the definition of ready, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think the biggest one is this. Don't underestimate the power of preparation.
So true.
In the world of Scrum, that means embracing the Door.
Yeah.
It's not just about preventing problems, although it's fantastic for that. It's about setting the stage for better collaboration, smarter decisions, and ultimately more successful outcomes.
And it sounds like the beauty of the Door is that it's adaptable, right? Like we talked about the iInvest model, but it's really about having those open conversations with your team and figuring out what ready actually means for your specific situation.
Exactly. What works for one team might not work for another, and that's perfectly fine.
Right.
The important thing is to just start the conversation, establish that shared understanding, and be willing to adapt and iterate along the way.
So our challenge to all of you listening is this. Don't wait for that next project fire drill.
Please don't.
Get your team together, even if it's just for 15 minutes, and start asking those ready questions.
Yes.
You might be surprised by what you uncover and the positive ripple effects it can have on your team and your work.
And as you start to implement this, think about how your definition of ready might need to evolve over time.
Oh, that's interesting.
As your team grows, as you take on new types of projects, even as your industry changes, those ready criteria, they should change too.
That makes sense.
Because what worked a year ago might not work today.
It's all about that growth mindset.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, on that note of continuous improvement, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found this exploration of the door both informative and inspiring, and we hope you'll join us again next time for another deep dive. Until then, go forth and pamper those projects with your newfound, ready superpowers.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe to Dev Mindset for more tech talks.